Well, hello everyone. It is I, your pal, J.Ishiro Finney, author and alien in a human suit. And I don't even know if this is really a good idea. I was in the Discord chatting with everyone, and then you all heard me scream no and leave. And that's because, as I mentioned, I'm switching medications. After 15 years of Lexapro, it doesn't seem to be doing the job anymore, so they're switching me to something else. I forget what. Don't really care, just care if it works. And so, I'm kind of in the middle of DTs right now. I haven't had a full dose of my medication for about a week, or no, a week. So that in itself is a lot of fun. But then the Mexicans up the street just can't seem to stop it with their goddamn fireworks. And we're not talking like little poppers or skyrockets. No, we're talking the ones that are so loud they shake the goddamn house. So that's kind of what you were hearing when I hit the floor and screamed no. That was just me reacting. So maybe me going on the air isn't the greatest idea, but fuck it, I feel like it. So I'm not going to talk about writers arguing on Twitter right now. I think I've got a good sense of the situation, and frankly, let grown-ups, two grown men can bicker between themselves, and none of us have to take sides. I mean, adults disagree all the time, and creative people, writers, artists, we're difficult folk with opinions. And when two of them have a disagreement, if it's just between the two of them, just leave it to best left between the two individuals. Forming teams and taking sides, it's a bad idea. It's a waste of time. As readers, our job, well, I'm a writer too, but as a reader, our job is to buy the fiction and enjoy it and have a good time. And if the fiction isn't good, don't buy it. That's it. That's it. In fact, often it's best if I don't know. You know what I'm saying. Fuck it. Who cares? Oh, you like watching them act like idiots and you laugh at them? Well, hopefully I'll get you to laugh today then. Actually, I thought I would address something a little different, and that was in the Discord, Tweldy, Eloise and I think maybe a few of others, had a little bit of a back and forth about Gnosticism. And it really kind of got me thinking that it'd be a fun time to tackle the ever fun, what does the atheist believe conversation. And I know that I have earned some cred and trust among you as the atheist who isn't the asshole or isn't the bad kind of asshole. In that, even though I have no faith, I thoroughly acknowledge and value the philosophical innovations of Christianity and think that they're one of the greatest achievements of Western civilization are those philosophical innovations that came with Christendom. But, getting back to the back and forth about Gnosticism, where it started was there was a conversation about the god Saturn or Cronus, and the fact that I think Eloise brought up that says she posted El, Bel, Kronos, Elohim, and other designations are names of Saturn. Bel is the reason for the sacred mysteries of both Saturn and Sol. Bel is the Syrian Kronos, a name derived from Quran to shrine. And I could read. I'm not even going to try and pronounce who wrote that. But I had mentioned that it is theorized that one of the theories is that Yahweh's true name is Saturn or Cronus, and that's actually one of the stronger ones theories, because what's the Lord's Day in Judaism but Saturday, Saturn's day? and that Sabbath is actually the root word of Sabbath goes to the Hebrew word for Saturn. Um, and let's hopefully it doesn't get my channel banned, but I had mentioned that for as long held that there is a Saturnalian cult among the elites. And curiously, Saturnalian cult, the ritual of Saturnalian rituals look a lot like Satanism, which is kind of interesting. So that was where it began. And then I think Alois had mentioned that from that viewpoint, the demiurge, that the Old Testament God seems to have a lot in common with the Gnostic concept of the demiurge. And my opinion as an atheist, so you can all discount what I think, because I'm not a person of faith. I contend that the Old Testament God and the God of the New Testament are not the same character. I've gone through my many reasons why I think that, but that's just my opinion, man. I'm a non-believer bound for hell, so who cares, right? And then Tueldi, our man of our man of the cloth here, our very spiritually minded man, Tueldi, who actually has really, I would say, is one of the few religious people who's really gotten me to think about things and really changed my view of things in a lot of ways. Had pointed out that the demiurge is a Gnostic concept, and that it connects directly to Marxism and communist ideology. And I had jokingly said, well, so far, Gnosticism has only really proven itself good for one thing, and that's inspiring the first Matrix movie and Dark City. But and we kind of went back and forth on that for a little bit. And I had mentioned that Gnosticism, from what I can tell, had just been a Platonic mystery cult until at some point it turned into a parasitic MLM-style pyramid scheme around 5,000 or 500 BC, conning people with the promise of secret knowledge. And I realized that for someone who is a Christian, Gnosticism can be pretty damn insidious. And it is. Don't get me wrong. And I would say for any Christian, Gnosticism is definitely probably one of the worst heresies you can imagine. So are Jews going to hell because they came from a snake cult? Dude, I'm an atheist. I have no God. That's the thing. Maybe I thought this would be a good time to get back into well, what does Ishii really believe? Well, what Ishii really believes is that we evolved this stuff. I mean, I'm just not spiritually inclined, or not in the way that you guys are. I mean, as Tuweldi pointed out, I've encountered gray aliens, okay? Whether they were in my dreams or something else, my encounters with the Greys had all the earmarks of a religious experience. And he made the point of that's why I can talk to people of faith, is because I did have the experience. It just took a very bizarre form. And as I had mentioned before, the concept of Kame very much appeals to me. And I remember discussing with Tuweldi, saying that didn't necessarily conflict with his concept of God, but really what it comes down to is the faith and the ritual never really clicked with me. And that I knew these stories came from somewhere. And my own opinion is that we evolved them. That it was a winning evolutionary strategy, that these were stories that are older than humanity, probably, unless there is a first cause for man. I mean, I've been looking into evolution, and it is interesting that there are a lot of issues surrounding Darwinism that they don't want to touch with a 10-foot pole. I mean, we've proven Darwinism in a lab with rats and insects, but what we can't prove is a first cause. Where did life itself come from? honestly, creationism is just as viable as any other theory at this point, as far as where did life itself come from. I'm not saying Genesis, the Genesis version of the story, but if you want to say an outside actor is where life sprung from, it's just as viable a theory as to where we came from as any of the others, and there's just as much proof for it. But for me, I've I've read the Sumerian scripts. I've read Babylonian stuff. I've read lots, and I'm somewhat versed in the Egyptian. And we've told these stories over and over again. And over time, these stories kept being refined and fine tuned and changed and repeated over and over again. And that was there a man named, was there a Christ? Yeah, I think so, actually. There was definitely somebody who was an actual Jesus. In fact, there might have been two or three people that were all kind of fused into one man. I mean, if you think about it, how many times do you think maybe one of his apostles went off and spread the word, and through the game of telephone, it suddenly became Jesus himself visited, not the apostle? Are gnomes real? I don't know. Depends on what you consider a gnome. But for me, it's just, again, I think that these were stories, these narratives that we told over and over again, and refine them and refine them, and that the best version of it took the form of Christendom, Christianity. I mean, Christianity itself did have its beginnings in the Abrahamic faith. Um, Whoever Christ really was, definitely him and his brother, had a lot to do with where that story went. And then the Greeks got their hands on it, and they filled it full of Greek philosophy and Socrates and Plato and a few others. And I think that was really what makes Christianity so different from Islam and Judaism, is the Hellenic part. And then later, it is, again, I don't know how many times I have to say it. I don't want to offend anyone. The last thing I would ever want to do is talk someone out of their religion. The fact of the matter is, for those of you with faith, I envy you. I really do. Because, no, I would love to think that when I die, it's not the end. I'd love to think there's an ultimate justice. I'd love to truly know that I would see the people I love and care about at the end of life. And when people die, it's very rough. It's very, very rough, because I see an off switch, and that's it. And maybe in some broader sense, their information lives on forever in the fabric of the universe. Maybe, I don't know. And the most terrifying thing for me when I got shot was, I didn't see my life pass before my eyes. I didn't have any of the cliches. My feeling was, I've got probably about 5 minutes, and then I vanish. Everything I am, everything I've done, everything I felt, everything I thought, everything I could have ever been will be gone. And that's it. I got 5 minutes. And that was my experience, which is pretty rough. But, religion's one of those things, especially Christianity. I would love to be wrong. And if I'm wrong, I will happily embrace it. I will embrace it through and through that I was wrong. But anyway, getting back to my point is, it looks like a few of the stories in the New Testament may have been added during the Middle Ages, which means there's a European influence. Specifically, it appears there's an argument that the story of the Good Samaritan was added during the Middle Ages and was a forgery that was put in because that was a moral value that they wanted. They wanted the people to adopt. That was a moral value they wanted to be a part of their culture. The catch is you don't know until you can't come back. But so for me, the other thing about me saying that this is some sort of eternal story that has changed and evolved and grown with us as a species, as a storyteller, stories are more powerful than reality often. A story that becomes myth or theology or even just legend can have more power than in any one individual. And so, I mean, there's a reason everyone got mad when they turned Luke Skywalker into a burnout loser chugging on blue milk on an alien world. Because for an entire generation, he was a hero of legend. He was something that we as a generation saw as an ideal to live up for and to live up to and to strive for. You know, the eternal optimist that would never turn his back on his friends, would always give his father a chance to redeem himself. Anyone could be saved. And all the things that Luke stood for, we knew Luke Skywalker wasn't real, but the story of Luke Skywalker was far more powerful than any single man could be. And so, in that regard, whether Christ was a man or truly the Son of God, in my opinion, as an atheist, it doesn't really matter for me because his story transcends any humanity, any one man. His story, the story that evolved out of thousands of years, and then, as I said, the Abrahamic religion, then going through Greece, then going through Europe and becoming what it did, is that story is more real, in my opinion, than our day-to-day reality. Because we'll go to bed tonight and we'll probably forget half of the things we do. But you know, when we're all long dead and gone, whether he's real or not, the story of Christ and the idea that we're all going to be judged on the same level and that we're all deserving of redemption if we truly have repented, that all life matters, that there is an ultimate truth and there is an ultimate right and a wrong, is so fucking powerful. It will go on and on for millennia without us, continuing to shape and change humanity and drive the course of civilization. And how is that not godlike? Seriously, how is that not godlike? And that's also why we need to keep our stories, even the ones we recognize as fiction. It's why our fiction is important. When a piece of fiction transcends fiction and becomes legend and myth, it's a key part of our culture. And we need to preserve them. And that's the reason they've been tearing our heroes down. They don't want us to have any standards. They want us all to be fat potato people with no standards who will simply eat the bugs, sit in the pods, and do labor. And it's why they don't want us to have any sort of history or culture or sense of self or individuality or we should be. You know, there's pride and then there's pride. There's good pride and bad pride. And I think we're seeing a lot of bad pride out of Hollywood. But in the thing, you know, when there are things to be proud of, like the fact that the West was the first to ban slavery, not because it was profitable, but because it was the right thing to do. England did that. You know, our founding fathers wrote a document that is one of the best, probably the best take on civilization ever. That's something to be proud of, and we can't let them take that from us. I don't know. I'm all over the place here, but so really, that's where I come from on this. Is that for me, in a sense, the stories are realer than reality in some ways if they're that powerful. And the Christ story is certainly that, and is a force for good. You see what happened in the West and what the West was under Christendom. And for all its flaws and all its missteps, we judged ourselves on a higher standard. Whereas you look at, say, Islam, they don't judge themselves on a higher standard. I don't care. I'll be offensive as hell. I'll be politically incorrect here. Islam is a fucked up, violent religion, and I hope humanity grows out of it, because you look at the world Islam has built versus the world the West had built, and things went downhill the moment we started abandoning all those Western values. The Old Testament stories are built upon the foundation. The New Testament is the evolution of philosophy. The Talmud is just angry fan fiction. The Talmud is a terrifying document that seems to be nothing but hate. I tried reading it, and my God, I'm just going to say it. The followers of the Talmud have an issue with hatred. I thought that the Quran was a hateful document. If you ever, you read the Christian Apocalypse, right? And it is this incredible piece of writing, just from a writing standpoint. It is poetry. It is some of the best poetic fiction you will ever read in your life. Of course, Greeks wrote it, right? Or John wrote it, and he was a Hellenic Jew, I believe. Um, of course, honestly, John was the writer's apostle. In the beginning, there was the Word. Come on, every writer, that should be your verse, man. Um, but you read the Quran. So I read the Christian Apocalypse because it is, on its own, it is just an amazing piece of writing. Just the imagery in it, the poetry of it. So I figured, okay, I'd read the Apocalypse in the Quran. One, it reads like crap. It's basically one great big list of who's going to hell and what they're going to get out of it. And it was like one long list of, well, these people are damned, and this is how they were punished. These people will be damned, and this is how they'll be punished. And these people will be, and it's like, who don't you hate Muhammad? Seriously, who don't you want to take a shit in the mouth of? Um, so, and as I said, I tried reading the Talmud, and it just was very unpleasant. Very unpleasant. But where the hell was I going with that? Have you read Kabbalah? I've studied Kabbalah, and Kabbalah and Gnosticism seem to go hand in hand, and Kabbalah and alchemy go hand in hand. You know what? I've said so many things already. Why do I even care about getting banned anymore? Honestly, I think Kabbalah is a very, very neat word LARP. There's a lot of games, and it's a very interesting, well thought out system of numbers and numerology and ideas. But at the end of the day, the entire premise of Kabbalah is it works because you've convinced everyone else it works. It's a con job. It's con artistry. Reality, what is Gnosticism? Oh, everything you see in front of you and everything you think is real isn't. Don't trust your eyes. Don't trust your ears. Don't trust what you read. Don't trust your senses. No. You're in the matrix. It's all wrong. Kabbalah is the same thing. It's like, oh, we're going to create a new reality by all agreeing upon it. Oh, these spells work because we've convinced you they work. And again, yeah, there's lots of neat symbols and a lot of neat games within it, the numerology and all that. But at the end of the day, I don't think Kabbalah is a good thing. Maybe there are good aspects to it. The Tree of Life definitely has some interesting things to it. But it seems like you get anyone dabbling in Kabbalah and they immediately start turning into like Aleister Crowley and, oh God, Alan Moore. They become amoral dirtbags. They start seeing themselves as gods, and they seem to have no issue with manipulating people and gathering to themselves followers. That's not a good track record, and wasn't it Kabbalah that put forth the idea that you create a problem so that everyone needs you to solve it? Mm. So, I mean, the most difficult part I have with telling people, yeah, but yeah, see, I just ripped on Kabbalah. I said I don't think it's a good thing. And I still feel that way if you're going to take it seriously and literally. But at the same time, Gnosticism, Kabbalah, fuck, even Satanism if you want. If you want to look at it from a mythological point of view, something to read, to look as a reflection of what's the darker side of the human mind, I think there's value in that. Go in with your armor. Go in with your own. Well, you would call it armor of God. I would call it armor of skepticism. On when you do so, realize you're reading mythology or legend. You're not reading fact, but there is value in looking into the pits of darkness. There is value in looking into the abyss. Because Kabbalah has black magic in it, and the other half of the tree of life is the tree of death. So Kabbalah created the DNC. No, I think a bunch of racist plantation owners created the DNC actually. Well, that depends. Satanism was atheism with extra steps added, like a retard. Yes and no. That is true, but it isn't true because there are multiple types of Satanism. You're talking LaVey Satanism, and I don't thoroughly buy that because LaVey himself was into Kabbalah. He came from a Jewish family and was very well read in Kabbalah, and I find it curious that his daughter is a worshiper. She says she's a worshiper of Set and Saturn. So maybe Dad meant it. Maybe he was a little more serious about it than he claims. Let's see. But like the one thing that when I know that he was just kidding, but Tweldy had said that I had jokingly said that Gnosticism's only real good purpose was it provided it inspired the first Matrix film. And I know Tweldy was just kind of joking, saying, no, that doesn't even, it's not even good for that. And I realized you were kidding, but at the same time, I think we got to be careful. I mean, is Gnosticism a con job? It's basically it's a religion made for con artists to create cults, yes. But let's not confuse Gnosticism for the metaphor of the cave. And I've been seeing a lot of that happen. You know, the parable of the cave, Plato's parable of the cave, where three people are chained to a cave, and above them is a hole in which light falls through onto a wall in front of them, and they think the entire universe is just shadows on a wall. And then one of them breaks free of his chains somehow and goes outside and sees a world of 3 dimensions and says, oh my God, my perceptions, I totally didn't understand. And he comes back to the other two and tries to explain to them, no, this isn't the universe. And they're so enraged, they kill him. There's value to that parable. I mean, seriously. I mean, and I'll tell you how. That's the original red pill. That's the original, oh, I was missing a puzzle piece. Or, oh, I needed to put on the glasses to see all the signs correctly, and they live. Or it could be even the metaphor for a Christian per se, I wasn't in the light of Christ. And again, keep in mind, this is coming from an atheist here. That could be the same metaphor. I didn't see the whole picture until. So the one thing that's kind of bothered me with is it Eric Weinstein? No, it's not Eric Weinstein. Who's it been, that's been going on a tear about Gnosticism when he actually just doesn't have the guts to admit that what he's really going on a tear is Kabbalah, and Kabbalistic magic is what he's really talking about, but he's using Gnosticism because it's safe. Who is it? Is it Lindsay? James Lindsay? Um, I think it was James Lindsay. He's been kind of going on a tear about how any of those stories where the metaphor is, oh, you're not seeing all of reality. Anytime you hear that, that's bad. It's like, dude, back off. No, that's a story as old as time. You know, that's the child becoming the adult. That's you realizing that, oh, I can die. That's realizing, oh, I've got responsibilities. That's realizing, oh, I won't live forever. And I don't know. It's like he's going from one extreme to another. It's like James Lindsay. I get it. Yes, we have a Gnostic Kabbalistic cult roaming among our elite, and they're very dangerous. But just because their metaphor, they're using a metaphor, doesn't mean the metaphor is bad. They're bad people. The metaphor isn't bad. And I'm getting, as I repeat, I'm getting a little worried about how much he's been kind of pounding the idea of the Platonic, the parable of the cave being bad as dangerous. Um, does anyone else kind of get what I'm going at here? Oh yeah, I'm not arguing there, Tueldi. The Saturn, yeah, I think there really are Saturnalian. I really do think it's a Saturnalian cult that practices Kabbalah and um, Gnosticism because they all fit together. Yeah, they're evil. That's not even in question. I mean, and the fact that we know they exist now, I mean, it's amazing. All these years we've been warned of this. Fuck, it turns out to be true. But we have to be able to still think in metaphor. We can't suddenly say that's a forbidden thought. And that's the path I see him going down. And I don't know if it's just because Lindsay can't think in nuance. If Lindsay can't think in anything other than one extreme to the next, because it does seem that's where he's at. They hate Christianity being the dominant religion. Well, it's the dominant, well, in the West, it's the dominant religion, and it's been the most successful. It's funny that all ancient cultures had rites involving caves. Well, I talked about this, I think, last week on, either was it the Monday or Wednesday show? The hero's journey probably had its roots in a manhood ceremony that involved a cave. And what it is that Neolithic man, we knew when girls were women, they could have kids. The moment a girl menstruated, she was a woman. But when is a boy a man? It's the eternal question. And that question has been the source of so many different narratives in mythology and is the backbone of the hero's journey. And what it's theorized, and there's evidence for this, is that in the Neolithic era, in the times when we were still hunter-gatherers, boys that were of age a boy would be taken down into a cave where somebody in a mask or would attack him and scare the shit out of him, or he'd be attacked by a wild animal, or something horrible would happen down to there, where basically he would learn he could die. He would have the ever living shit scared out of them. Um, or he would actually have to fight for his life, one of the two. And once the boy understood death was real, then they would show him some stuff, some cave paintings telling a narrative, and then he would come back to the surface, no longer a boy, but a man, forever changed. And let me tell you, the day you know you're going to die and you know what death is for real, because it happened to me when I was young, when I got shot, you are forever different. And it's believed that that was the beginnings of the hero's journey. That's where we got those narrative beats. Christianity believes in redemption, but if someone doesn't want to be redeemed or is too far gone, should you give up on them or put them down? I'm not saying go full Punisher on them, just asking. Um, Well, I think that the "Thou shalt not kill" line has been taken a little bit too much to the extreme, and realize that God, again, I do not like crapping on anyone's religion, but those commandments did not come from Moses. There were earlier versions that were almost identical to those commandments in Babylon. What was it? What the king of Babylon had a similar list of commandments, and it was very clear that's where Moses got them from. Now, I'm just that's it. Just saying that those the commandments in the Ten Commandments predate the Old Testament and Moses by a very, very long time. And the "Thou shalt not kill" wasn't "Thou shalt not kill." It was "Thou shalt not murder." I think you've all known this story. Yes, exactly. That's who I'm talking about, Tweldy. The point being is that unfortunately, killing is a necessary part of survival sometimes. And there is a huge difference between a soldier killing in war and murder being committed. And to be a little more brutal, Moses' commandments only applied to the tribe. Those commandments could be broken all you wanted if they weren't part of your tribe, apparently. Thou shalt not covet one's wife or household. But and keep in mind, I think that a little bit, I'm not saying that the Ten Commandments are good or bad, and I'm not really passing judgment. I do think there's too much, I think we pay far too much attention to them because they're an easy, you know, don't do this, don't do this, do this, don't do this. And I think we need to pay more attention to the Sermon on the Mount, honestly, which trumped the Ten Commandments, if I'm recalling correctly. And that the Sermon on the Mount is really the one that we should be thinking more about these days. Um, but my bit about thinking metaphorically and the fact that even if something isn't real, even if a story is fiction, it can carry a great deal of value and have a lot of power. And the fact that there are so many powerful people trying to get rid of Christianity from our culture is an indication of just how powerful that story is, right? Um, uh, what about the apple? Pope Francis says it's morally acceptable to arm Ukraine. Well, Pope Francis is probably a Satanist, or at least a Kronos worshiper. The dude is not Catholic. The guy let pagan idols into the Vatican. I'm not even Catholic, and I'm like saying, what the fuck's wrong with you? That's blasphemy, man. Why even be Catholic at all at that point? Seriously. Pagan fertility idols in the Vatican? Seriously? Why the hell wasn't he deposed right then and there? Actually, the Ten Commandments still referred to other non tribes, but the certain tribe had a high opinion of themselves. Well, nothing's changed. Not, no matter how hard God tried to wrangle them, they still go full retard. Yes, he's a literal communist, and I do not see how you can be both a Catholic and a communist. Seriously, especially since communism openly says they want to eradicate Catholicism. Um, I think Francis is the anti-pope. Well, which pagans, though? Yes, the Christianity did absorb pagans, but pagan's such a blanket term. I mean, which kind of pagan? Seriously. Um, we had a setup of paradise, and humanity had imperfections that prevented us from achieving paradise. Oh, you mean the Eden story? I don't know. I don't know. There are so many different versions of that story, though, and so many different take it takes on what happened. It depends on which one you want to look at. Did you hear that the Pope stacked the College of Cardinals, people who vote for the Pope, with people that think like him, creating a supermajority? I don't know why Catholics just don't storm the Vatican right now. Seriously. I mean, the fact that we could have a paradise, but I like to believe God wants us to earn it rather than give it to us. Okay, so paradise. I can accept paradise as an abstract, as a goal to strive for. And I think that paradise, from my blasphemous atheist point of view, is an abstract goal that should be one we never reach. Mankind was not built for paradise. We were built for struggle. We want challenges. We want hardship. We want something to work towards. When people get too comfortable, they either atrophy into fat slobs or they turn into children or they tear it all down. And it's a very rare person who can become like a millionaire or billionaire, have everything they've ever wanted, and still be a self starter and say, no, well, that's not what I'm in it for. I'm in it for something else. I'm in it to achieve. I'm in it to build. I'm in it to reach further. And so I have a feeling, as a child, I think this was one of the problems I had in catechism. I remember being taught about heaven, and I remember the nun saying, "Well, in heaven, all questions are answered, all problems are solved, all all things are done for you. There's nothing to worry about, think about." And it sounded like hell to me. I'll be honest. It scared the shit out of me as a kid. The idea of going to a place where I had no purpose other than to just be. And I'm not saying I'm a normal person, but yeah, as a kid, that scared the hell out of me. Um, but I think right now, part of the problem is that we have gotten too much of a good thing. It's too easy for a lot of people just to become potato people and sit on the couch and eat, watch TV, and watch the world pass them by. And that I think that's why so many people are killing themselves. I think that there are a lot of women out there, whether they want to admit it to them or themselves or not. Part of them is telling them, I do want a child. I think there are a lot of men out there that deep down wish they were providing for a woman and raising children, or doing something great with their lives rather than just going to a 9 to 5 and existing, or worse, living on the government teat. You know, um, watch. I'll know. Watch. Maybe I'll prove myself wrong. Maybe I'll become a hypocrite. But I'll be honest with you. If one of my properties ever hit it big and I got rich, would I live differently? No, yeah, I would probably have a little bit nicer house. I'd probably have some nicer stuff. But Really, the only thing that would change is it would mean that I would have even less to worry about while I put all my attention on writing and comics and publishing and trying to continually do the things that I love. And part of that is the challenge. If I didn't have a challenge, I think I'd off myself. Eve got knocked up by Satan, the serpent, in some stories. Yeah, yeah, that is true. The tribe wants the competition crippled. Eh. Without the apple, the humans would be like animals, like everything else in the garden. And do you really want to be an animal? I mean, the animals have no awareness. They have no long term memory. They have no free will. They're just kind of meat machines doing their thing, right? But in eating the apple, uh, or the fig as it originally was, I think, we're given knowledge and free will, and life becomes difficult. Okay. That is why we were thrown out of the garden. The interesting is the Sumerian version. The 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 uh, the Elohim. They were multiple. They were plural, and they called them that because they weren't gods. They called them Elohim. Um, had a giant kingdom, and in the center of it, a giant garden where the humans lived. And they told the humans, "Well, don't outbreed the capability. Don't outbreed the garden because we can only provide so much food." And some of them just kept breeding and breeding and breeding, and overbred, and were booted out. And that the ones that were kicked out because they did not listen then ran off to a swamp that was said to be a den of snakes. I'll have to go back and reread it. That's part of it. And the interesting thing is in the Sumerian religion, the fallen angels of the Old Testament of Judaism. In the Sumerian religion, those are the beneficent Elohim that teach mankind how to build and how to read and how to farm and take care of his health and read the stars and predict the seasons. Uh, give humanity the gift of writing and language. So it's kind of a weird. As I said, this story's been told a lot. Um, then there was also another version in which there were those who were created by God, and then there was the bastard children of the snake. And supposedly that was a reason people were so obsessed with genealogy, was to make sure you weren't of the snake. Well, what's my opinion of the Nephilim? Well, it's pretty clear that there were two types of Nephilim. There were the ones that God killed off, but then there were also the other ones like Gilgamesh and all the other heroes of old, which were all considered canon. And part of the problem is a lot of the Old Testament makes references to stuff that was referencing things that we don't know the context. And so that's part of it. Um, my honest opinion of the Nephilim? Well, there's either one or two versions, in my opinion. Uh, either my people did come down and have sex with you guys, or they were the Neanderthal, because the Neanderthal were taller than us, And it now appears that they taught us the basics of tool making and the beginnings of language or written language. Or that's the most recent findings, that in fact some of the tools of civilization were taught to us by the Neanderthal. And they were taller than us. There were giants in those days. Okay, going through here. Adam and Eve were caretakers of the garden. Adam walked and talked to God on a regular basis. Okay. Look, if I get anything wrong, again, don't take it personally. I'm not claiming to be an expert. And I am more than willing or more than happy to be corrected, okay? When the leader of ISIS died, Trump mentions of a dog talking about a terrorist who claimed to be Christian. When the leader of ISIS died, Trump's mentioned of a dog was like talking about a terrorist who claimed to be Christian being killed by sorry, Rick, that's not English. Well, that's good. You know, the thing is, I keep saying that, Destroyer, because I don't want to disrespect anything you believe in. And again, I don't want to be the asshole atheist who's trying to take something away from you people. Um, again, I respect your faith greatly, all of your faith. And Rick, do you smell burnt toast? Yeah. And yeah, I'm by no means an expert. But no, the thing is, there are so many versions of this story, and there are so many conflicting versions. And keep in mind, I think until the Council of Nicaea, I could be wrong, but until then, there was kind of a policy similar to the Egyptian faith, which was everything was canon, which is why there were versions of Christianity that believed in reincarnation. By the way, Tueldi, that video you sent me where the Old Testament has God as a Trinity was fascinating. I thought that was really interesting. Um, but the thing, even the idea of a Trinity itself is not unique to Christianity. I mean, the Celts certainly, their father god was a Trinity, for instance. And I think most of the Hindu gods were trinities as well. The cult of Dionysus. Yeah, they had to get rid of that cult because they were causing too many problems. But yeah, over the years, these stories get told over and over again, and they sort of overlap and contradict and change, and certain things get mistranslated, and certain, I mean, just as an example, for quite, you'll see a lot of feminists claim that in the Greek mythology, uh, Persephone was raped by not Pluto, Hades, that Hades raped Persephone. And there are writings that say that. Guess what? It was a mistranslation. No, what it meant was he kidnapped her. He did not rape her. And unfortunately, over the years, lots of mistranslations like that have happened. I know that during the Middle Ages, a lot of things were truncated to make it easier for the masses to understand. The cult of Dianetics. Oh, God. Poseidon. Yeah, exactly. He loved her. I noticed the Celts of the Old Testament had a Holy Trinity. Yeah. And the thing is, I talked about this too a few times, that the Celts were not conned into Christianity. This whole idea that, that this wonderful pagan religion was steamrolled and destroyed by the Christians is not true. The fact was the Christians showed up and the Celts liked it better. They felt it was a better offer. They liked the idea of not having to sacrifice babies to get a better harvest. They liked the idea of redemption and the idea that there was one who would judge all, and that there was no chosen holy bloodlines and all that other stuff. So yeah, I mean the Celts took to Christianity quite well. They just, long as they could hold on to the fairy lore, they were okay with it. All right, I'm kind of losing my voice and getting a little lightheaded. So if you want to throw in any of your comments before I go, I mean, did you guys find this interesting? The thing is, I still haven't quite gotten to the meat of the story because I'm still trying to reconcile how the hell an atheist has a religious experience with gray aliens. And now I know that quote, that sound clip will be used forever and ever to discredit anything I say. Let's see. I think you handled a controversial topic very well with a mixed audience. I heard a story that a lot of Greek mythology stories came from translating, seeing a story of a guy that was banished from Greece. So he wrote down myths to be very negative about their god. Well, maybe one translation, but keep in mind those stories were passed on by word of mouth as well, and there were multiple versions of them written down. But that doesn't shock me. Viking wannabes, more cringe than weeaboos? The hippie ones, yeah. I mean, look, if you got somebody who's an actual hardcore Viking Odinist who's legit, I'm cool with it. I'm fine. I get the attraction. But these Norse LARPers who like, oh, they were so spiritual and they were with nature. It's like, no, they were conquerors. No. They were so peaceful. No, they weren't. There were a lot of great things about the Vikings. A lot of they were far more advanced in a lot of ways than people realize, but they were not fucking hippies. And this hippie Viking shit has got to go. That is cringy as all hell. You know what? I would say that's more cringy than a weeaboo. Okay, what? That is more cringy. That's more cringy than a chigger. Okay, just point blank. And if anybody knows what that is, good for you. Tweldy says, because J.Ishiro, you were being saved and God was trying to get to you. Well, if God was coming to me as little gray men to get me on track, I will say the little gray men were the first step to me getting my head together. I will say that the moment I just said point blank to the universe itself, I said, I know I'm sick. I know I'm broken. I'm a deep pit. Don't give me what I want. Give me what I need. And I didn't think anything of it. It was a cry of desperation. And that's when the dreams started. And that is actually when I started to crawl out of my hole and deal with post-traumatic stress. And the little gray men helped me work my way through post-traumatic stress. And then they said I was related to them. Okay. I honestly get annoyed with the myth of the noble savage. Yeah, that is the worst. But keep in mind, the Vikings were not savage. They were actually a far more complex civilization than anyone gives them credit for. But they were a people of their time. They were a conquering people. Um, all right. Abandoned Viking LARPers, weeboos, embrace the inner crusade, Deus Volt. So what's so fucking stupid, Destroyer? You know, I find it curious that none of you guys rip on me when I talk about the gray men, little gray men. I appreciate that. I was actually expecting to have a lot more pushback on that. All right. Well, I will talk to you guys later. And yeah, Deus Volt.